Hi, beautiful ladies. Welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk to you about being the girl who has never fit in and how to navigate that. As someone who has kind of been the black swan in situations, if you will, pun intended, sometimes it can be difficult to go through life when you don't fit in or you feel as if you don't have acceptance from people who you think you should be accepted by. And I'm not just talking about like your ethnic group or your racial community. I'm talking about, being able to fit in at school, for example. Like maybe you are a good student, you're respectful, you're well mannered, but for some reason you find yourself being picked on by other girls in your class and even the boys because you're simply different. You haven't done anything wrong aside from not looking or behaving like those around you. And so you find yourself being picked on. Or maybe sometimes in your family setting, maybe you're literally the black sheep of the family where just for whatever reason you're different and your family has a hard time accepting that. Maybe you have always been into tech. Maybe you've always kind of been a little bit of a nerd, and that's weird to your family. And instead of them embracing that and saying, wow, shout out to so and so for being smart and being committed to hobbies that are different and things that can help her, they seek to ostracize you and make you feel badly about that. I'm here to tell you that you are not alone. Again, as someone who has been the black sheep in a lot of situations, it can be difficult to the point that sometimes you find yourself trying to force yourself to look the part, act the part, be the part, so that you will no longer be ostracized and so that you can fit in. But I'm also here to tell you that you are not being true to yourself when you try to dilute the essence of who you are, or you try to cover up certain aspects of your personality just so that you can be accepted and fit in. Because then you're going to find yourself being miserable because you're forcing yourself to hide who you really are to fit into a space that is not authentically you. And why would you want to fit into a space that does not accept you for who you are? Yes, I do say that it is important not to really care about what people think of you. That is a mentality that you should have in general concerning people. But let's face it, one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is love and belonging. It is literally right in the middle of that pyramid, and love and belonging entails friendship, love, intimacy, family, community, etc. And that honestly plays into, once you have that established, then that plays into you having healthy self esteem, which ultimately then leads to self actualization. Self actualization is your willpower, your determination to literally live life, to chase after your goals and your dreams, and to be committed to becoming a better version of yourself, constantly growing and learning so that you can evolve continually into a better person. But if your basic needs at the bottom are not being met, your physical needs, literally things that you need for survival, if you're not safe, and then again, that love and belonging piece, which I honestly believe that love and belonging feeds into safety as well, because if you are mentally constantly being told that you are not good enough, even though, like, again, you're not doing anything wrong, or you're constantly being made to feel small just because you are different or you like different things, that can put you in a place mentally where you're not safe because you don't feel safe in that environment. You don't feel safe in around certain people. And so then you find yourself in a position trying to make yourself safe. And for some people, that means trying to conform to the status quo or conform to society's norms so that you can be accepted. But again, the issue with that is that while you are shrinking yourself to fit into that small peg, you are denying yourself of your true essence, the things that make you you, those characteristics that form your inner being, that form your identity and the essence of who you are as a person, which will then impact your ability to form healthy self esteem and ultimately self-actualization, which is why a lot of people, a lot of young people, especially in high school, have a hard time with self-esteem. A lot of them deal with depression and anxiety. I dealt with that when I was in high school because they've missed a step on this hierarchy. Having true love and belonging, not just having the image or a facade of being accepted just because you chose to look like everybody else, you kind of having to negotiate and give up one thing in order to gain the other. They had to give up, a lot of them, true essence of who they are. And a lot of young people don't snap out of that depression, even into college. Honestly, they don't snap out of that until number one, they either choose, like, I don't care. I would much rather be shunned and ostracized than to give up on who I am, or until they get out of that toxic environment and they meet other people who have similar likes and interests so that they can truly form that community, love, and belonging that they need. And then from there, you notice that you no longer feel anxious and depressed because you have that synergy within yourself. You're at a place of peace internally where you are being true to who you are. And then comes a self actualization. That's where you start to form new ideas, or you start to rediscover likes and interests that you previously gave up on or maybe forgot about while you were literally in survival mode trying to be accepted and loved. On this channel, I believe in honesty. I don't sugarcoat things. And so when you're dealing with a situation like this, you need to assess yourself first. Sometimes we don't fit in, quote unquote, or get along with others because of our own shortcomings. Okay, we have socially awkward behaviors that need to be addressed and fixed first before we can form meaningful relationships with other people. While I do believe that you should get in where you fit in, or, make connections with people who align with you and who accept you and love you for who you are, as human beings in general, there are just certain behaviors that are frowned upon that will cause you to be ostracized if you do not stop doing that. So, for example, if you are passive aggressive, if you are a mean girl for no reason, so it's kind of like you're just mean and nasty and confrontational to other girls for no reason when they were just being neutral or being nice to you, even, then obviously no one's going to want to be friends with you because you're just not a pleasant person to be around. That's true mean girl energy. You standing up for yourself in the face of people trying to push your buttons, people trying to make you feel small, and you standing up for yourself and giving them a taste of their own medicine is not mean girl energy. That is you standing up for yourself, and you should continue to do that. But if you're just rude, people will say, like, oh, hey, good morning, and you have an attitude for no reason, or you don't know how to regulate your emotions. So every time you're going through something, you always make it other people's problem instead of doing the inner work or speaking to a therapist about it. That becomes exhausting. That is a social faux pas, and that is going to push healthy, wholesome people away, and rightfully so. If you were in a position where, you're trying to navigate life as well, and there's this one individual that's constantly trauma dumping, constantly telling you, all the issues that they're going through, but they're making zero effort to make their situation better, you're going to be repelled by that person as well, and rightfully so. So, a lot of times, these socially awkward behaviors that we have, these inappropriate behaviors that we have, it stems from being raised in a toxic environment, oftentimes abuse, or being sheltered. So, if you've only been exposed to one way of thinking, then naturally you're only going to interact with others in that way until you allow yourself to be exposed to other ways of life or thinking, which is why I always recommend traveling, studying abroad, moving to a new town, or simply just networking, getting to know other people, being open to other ways of thinking. It doesn't mean that you need to adopt other ways of thinking or other ways of being. You shouldn't. You should be true to who you are and only adopt things that align with your values or that you believe will make you a better person. But if you're kind of closed minded, which I honestly struggle with that in university because I was kind of on this religious kick where I was like, oh, I'm trying to be a good Christian. And so I'm going to hold on to these very rigid ways of thinking, and if you do not fall in line with that, then I'm just going to look down on you. And of course, I had issues with people who I went to school with. And luckily, I was able to snap out of that. But had I had a more open minded perception on life and just people in general, realizing that, human beings, we come in different shapes and sizes and viewpoints, and it's okay for people to be different from you. Someone being different from you does not make them less than. I think that I would have formed more meaningful relationships. You can disagree with someone's point of view in life without it impacting you or without it warranting an emotional response of, okay, I'm going to take it upon myself to tell you that you ain't ish because you believe in this. You can simply just be like, okay, cool, and move on without it meaning anything. On the other hand, sometimes we find ourselves having difficulty connecting with others because of just being different, and one or both sides are not willing to accept those differences and coexist. So human beings, we believe that if we share certain characteristics, that we should be the same in all aspects. So for example, in the Black community, a lot of Black people think that if you share a skin tone, that means that we should have the same likes and interests in music. We should like the same type of men. We should like the same type of food. We should all vote the same way politically. And if you don't believe every single thing that I believe, if you are not the textbook cookie cutter Black person, then you are a race traitor and a coon. And even one thing, even being into rock music or anime is frowned upon in the Black community. Okay. But then these same people will kind of turn around and be like, oh, Black people aren't a monolith. And I wish that white people wouldn't lump us all together and stereotype us. But then we'll turn around and do the same thing to your fellow Black woman who thinks differently. We need to accept that people are different and will have different interests, and that's totally okay. And so when we deal with these factors of not fitting in and we grapple with finding community and acceptance, and sometimes, especially if you're an exotical and especially if you're mixed race and you don't look like either side, so you don't look Black, for example, or you don't look like your white side, it can be difficult because sometimes you may face rejection from both sides. And then it's like, okay, great, there's no one else out there who looks like me. And so where do I find community? When you kind of find yourself in these situations, you end up, sometimes if you're not careful, you can end up people pleasing in order to be accepted. But then also you're going to be miserable because, again, you're not being true to who you are. It can cause you to lose touch with who you are because you're having to wear a mask for so long so that you can be accepted, but then you also forget about all of your likes and your interests and things like that. And so, again, that's where that whole mental health piece comes in because you have kind of forsaken and forgotten those aspects of your life that gave you joy, that gave you peace, that gave you happiness in exchange for false acceptance. So, if you are a loner or you have a hard time fitting in order for you to get over this, you need to accept who you are and stop trying to force things. Okay? You will be met with much more resistance energetically because you're going against the grain. It's like trying to fit into a pair of shoes or clothing that are too small. If you are a size 8, you may be able to get away with a size 7, depending on who the designer is, but you are going to be very uncomfortable. Your feet are going to hurt. The same thing with life. You may be able to get away with fitting into these spaces, hanging out with certain type of people that you don't really like and they don't really like you, but deep down inside, if you are, and sometimes it's not even that deep, okay? It's very apparent and obvious that it's not working and you're going to be miserable and uncomfortable like those small pairs of shoes. And when you give up on your identity and the essence of who you are, you also lose out on the opportunity to learn more about yourself, which will ultimately stunt your growth and can cause you to plateau. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're kind of losing the zest of life, you're not really motivated to do things as much, you don't really find things exciting anymore, you need to analyze the environment that you're in because you could very well be in a setting that is not for you. Maybe you need to stop going to a certain type of church, or maybe you need to stop hanging around that type of person. Maybe you need to stop dating those type of men. Maybe you need to move from that community or that country altogether and go to where there are people who are like you, and not necessarily like you on the same level. You should also aspire to be around people who are more advanced than you so that you can learn from them and grow, literally have room to grow into something. But you need to be on with people who are on the same wavelength energetically, and that entails a growth mindset. Regardless of what your likes or dislikes are, every single listener of this video, we're all going to have different things that we aspire for in life. But the one common thing that should be applied amongst all of us is to have a growth mindset. Get around people who have a growth mindset as it pertains to your life. And once you get around that type of environment, you're going to very quickly find yourself finding joy and peace and happiness again because you're simply in the right environment. Honestly, there is no reward for hiding your talents and your strengths. And there's no reward for you making yourself small in order to appease people. That person is going to eventually get over whatever their gripe is with you, their jealousy, their insecurity, and move on to the next victim. And you're kind of just, you're going to be left feeling empty and unfulfilled because you gave up on who you are. In the world of technology, we are more interconnected than ever before. So use that to your advantage and connect with those who are like-minded rather than trying to force yourself to fit into a space where you don't belong, especially if you're isolated or there are no people around you that like what you like. All right, and just keep this in mind. These are my last parting words to you. The weirdos and different people, they tend to be the innovators and leaders of the world because we literally see the world differently and are therefore able to add value in a way that others are not able to. So think of the Mark Zuckerbergs and Jeff Bezos of the world. They literally achieved the success that they did because they are different and they didn't shy away from that. I'm sure when they first started, people may have called them nerds. I mean, if you look at photos of Jeff Bezos back when before he was a billionaire, almost trillionaire, people, I'm sure, clowned him and called him a nerd and unattractive. But now he's a billionaire, he's shaking hands with presidents, and he's being invited to spaces that 99% of the world will never see and probably will never know exists, all because he decided to stay true to who he was and continue to lean in and cultivate his talents and his gifts, okay? So consider your uniqueness a gift from God. Lean into that, ask for clarity and direction, and literally cultivate it. And I bet you in a year's time and beyond, you're going to be so glad that you did. You're going to be a different person. And who knows what's going to come out of that. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Let me know what you think about this one down below in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Memberships are now live on this channel. Click the link in the description box to sign up to receive access to exclusive content and perks.